anymore.
All right. At the moment, Nigeria appears enveloped in economic gloom, and something drastic is expected to change the situation. Following hike in the pump price of petrol, members of the organized private sector expressed fear over possible shutdown of businesses and job losses. The president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Francis Meshioye, said the unpredictability of fuel price hikes will take a toll on manufacturers who already have to readjust their budgets to cover the added costs caused by removal of fuel subsidy. Quickly, this is not the best of time. We don't have lights, and the power supply is not constant, and people will have to buy fuel to, power their generator. The manufacturers, this is not the best time.
Yes, everyone has to readjust their budget. Even here at TVC, had to adjust our budget. If you made your budget on 700 naira to $1 template, you know now that that projection has been thrown out of the window. So, and that's the way it is. For example, some companies paid one-off inflation allowance. They call it something like inflation support. Some form of allowance that supports.
But the inflation is not one-off.
Now, they did that, and shortly after they did it, fuel price hike happened again. In such a situation, what do you do? What do you do? Something that you just wanted, and at that time, people were happy. Oh, they've done it. No one was expecting that.
The second
that within so short,
we just wake up in the morning and
this thing will go up. But that is the problem with subsidy removal. You cannot praise the president for the courage to remove subsidy, because subsidy continuation of subsidy will have led us to fiscal collapse as a country. We were already finding it difficult to even service our debts. We were already projected to borrow money to service our debt.
Brink.
We were on the brink, at the edge of the cliff. And when you are on the edge of the cliff, you know that you are winking at death. So you can't support removal of subsidy. You can't see it as a demonstration of courage, and then because of the ill effects of it, because
this hike
of the ill effects of it now, the fact that our people, more and more of our people, have been pushed into the poverty line. You will now say, oh, I hate subsidy. That is the height of hypocrisy. You must be able to stand by what you supported. Yes, you may not have thought that it will lead to this level of suffering. But again, we had been warned by the former CBN governor that this will be difficult times, that the next administration, that he hopes that those coming even know the extent of the problems that they are going to inherit. So, look at where we are. Every time, or it was on Sunday here last week that I said we have not seen the worst. Every time oil prices go up, we will face this kind of problems that we are facing now. Oil prices will go up in Nigeria. And what has worsened it for us as a people is the fact that, coupled with that, we have Naira flotation that has made the value of our currency to slide rapidly against other currencies of the world. It just happens that it's dollar that everybody is talking about, because dollar is the medium of exchange in the global oil market. But the currency has actually declined against all international currencies. whether it is safer that we used
Somebody
to.
was telling me that the Republic of Benin Sefa is now more than an naira.
Yes,
now.
That's why even some of the farmers in the north, it pays them to push their produce across the border. I've seen vehicles that when they stack the grains, is almost as high as this building. They are taking it across the border because they will earn more. That is the thing. So we need to take steps to fix the value of our currency and then come up with palliatives. Without it, if anyone thinks that, oh, of course, we have to also let our people know that the value of the oil prices can also go down. There was a time it came down to 30. When we had recession, that time when we had recession, it actually came down to 30. So it can still come down. When it comes down, they will still sell to us at the prevailing global price. So the notion that anything that goes up in Nigeria cannot come down. No. With oil prices and with subsidy removed, since we are relying on market forces, it will still come down. I'm confident that it will still come down.
Okay.
Yeah.
For manufacturers.
To start with, for manufacturers. Personally, I think we are taking so many things at the same time. That is what is causing part of the problem we're having. We are removing oil subsidy. We're having naira fluctuation, and some other is within. The fact is that there's a way we could have spread. Personally, that's my personal opinion. I'm not an economist. I feel there's a way we could have spread these issues that the effect wouldn't have been as much as it should, as it is now. But that is what, if you understand what I'm trying to say, if we could have spread it. Okay.
Well, some people argue that the flotation shouldn't have been done.
Exactly, that is it. The flotation should have been stabilized. It would have stabilized and then because
it has worsened the oil prices. Worsened oil prices.
You know that a journalist, as journalists, we seem to be, I don't know, okay, we can say that of law too. We seem to be the people that have a master, knows about practically everything. That is why we are talking about law, you talk about medicine, that is a journalist for you. That is our training. But I personally, I feel that we shouldn't have doubled this thing together. That is why the people are feeling so much the effect of this, and it is writing. Then let us also look at it from let us look at, we are talking about the removal of subsidy. We have not talked, I have not seen, I have not heard, I'm probably wrong, I have not heard what we're going to do to refine our petroleum products. I know that some people have been given licenses to refine, and even the Dangote that ought to have started. Nobody's talking about Dangote.
Nobody knows when they will really.
Nobody knows when Dangote, because that is where we're paying. Don't forget that we have about 20%.
They said their first product will come out.
They said July.
They have told us whether it is PMS because it has different products. Even into fertilizer
and the rest of them.
So I'm only interested in the PMS.
They moved from June to July. Nobody knows now. And don't forget that we have about 20 or 25% equity. When I say we, I mean the federal government, Nigeria, the country have. So we depended so much on that. Now we have seen that that is not working. Then coming back to this for now, I say that it is, of course. You know, Nigeria the way they are. Oh, they're going to.
I said that is not working.
Now, but let us know on the final note. The palliatives we are talking about, NEC met during the week and said the governors should go back. We should now, they jettison the one compiled by. Now ask governors to go back and do a compilation. Some of these governors were part of the same list. Some of these governors approve it. This same list that was used by Buhari. Then what gives the impression that
my problem is that they can even politicize.
That is where I'm going to. Some of them are going to do, what you're going to say is the name of their cronies and the rest of them.
Party members.
With party members.
People.
You saw what we saw what happened to the 774,000 jobs. Where they hijacked it and put their cronies. I still doubt that is personally, I would just think that since the president talked about stepping down that policy, we should have just stepped down that. Channel that money to other areas.
The thing is backed by law.
Yeah, but
one of the last laws that President Buhari signed is backed by law, and there's even an agency that is in charge.
Yeah.
Once it's backed by law, if I were the president, since this thing doesn't appear to be something that will work, and a lot of corruption trails it, they can go back to the National Assembly
Of course.
to re-amend.
Amend it, yes.
In a manner that will not look like, oh,
it's a law.
Going against
yes.
the man who was there before.
Yeah.
Because that's the way Nigerians will see. But there are issues. You can't go and be sharing 8,000
naira.
Because if you are saying they should compile another list, you know, of the poorest poor, it suggests that they have not totally closed the chapter.
That is it. That's what
that maybe they want to.
Exactly.
But we don't. The thing, yes, it gives room for so much corruption. It gives room for so much corruption. They said even some of those the people on the list were fictitious.
Very, very fictitious.
And they made money. The people were just making money. We should not allow that to happen this time.
Joining us for more discussion on this issue is an economics and a chief executive officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you, AY.
Yes.
Good afternoon to BKO and my other colleague. Yeah.
Good to see you, sir.
I want to ask you, the president decided at the same time removing subsidy and at the same time floating the naira. Is that in any way counterproductive?
Was it right to do the two things the same time?
Well, I think there is nothing wrong in doing the two at the same time. What is important is how we manage each of those compartments of policy. And let me say upfront that globally, even in the best model of a market economy like the US, subsidy exists. Subsidy in itself is not a bad thing at all if there is effective targeting of it. In many of all these countries, there's heavy subsidy on education. There's heavy subsidy on health, although most of them lean towards health insurance, where the healthy subsidizes the sick. There's heavy
Lost connection with Dr. Muda. I'm sure my producer will try to get Dr. Muda Yusuf back on this. So subsidy is not the real problem here. Government can subsidize some sector. So
there are still some
problem. I must say that often. And in managing an economy, we must take account of the core objectives of economic management. In managing an economy, there is a commercial or profit objective, which the private sector focuses on largely. When you are in business, what you want to make is profit. There is the economic objective, which both the government in partnership with the private sector will pursue. That's about job creation, about infrastructure building, about productivity, and things like that. Then there is the social objective, which is exclusively in the purview or the domain of government. So when we are managing any economy, we have to balance these three. We cannot afford to leave the economy entirely to market forces. No. I'm a strong believer in market economy. But we need to define boundaries. Because the economic players, private sector players are after profit. I'm not saying we should not pursue that. But when in the process of allowing that, we are hurting, affecting the objective of government, and there has to be some intervention. I was shocked when I listened to the GMD of NNPC or PCL. After this last review, he came on here and he was talking about market forces. Now, energy product is a socially sensitive product. So far, at least given where we got to before the last review, substantial problem of the subsidy problem has been solved. Because we increased fuel price by about 150%. How can anybody give approval that less than 2 months after, you are coming to the public to increase the fuel price when there had been no palliatives, when the citizens are crying? I mean, how do you want the citizens to feel about that? Because this is what I'm saying about defining boundaries. At least it should not be coming from an NPC as a public institution. I know they are going private. I mean, what kind of signal? And at that time, he said they had about 30 days reserve of fuel. Why should NNPC be the one leading the capitalist agenda? That is not right. So the politicians in the system need to ensure a balance in all of this. Need to ensure things that are politically expedient, things that are socially expedient, and ensure that we have a balance in all of these things. The pain points for citizens today are in the area of food price, in the area of energy price, and in the area of transportation cost. And as a government, we have a responsibility to moderate the way these things move. Yes, we need to transit from one system to the other, but we need to do so slowly so that we don't suffocate the citizens. These policies are fine, but the way you go about it also matters. We need to define boundaries of market economy. When we had the 2008 financial crisis, in the United States, which is the best model of free enterprise, when the auto industry was going down, the Obama administration used public funds, billions of dollars, to salvage the auto industry.
The airlines.
Not because of the shareholders, but because of the employees, the job losses and implications for the larger economy. And after 1 or 2 years, they recover and they pay back the money to government. So we should not just leave the market entirely to market forces. In a market economy, there is room for market intervention because there are occasional market failures. We should recognize market failures in economic management. What I say?
Since of last time, okay, network problem. It's making a lot of sense here. As we say, the way it is.
You know, there's a point that I made there that you said you have supply for 30 days. The supply that you have for 30 days must have been based on previous pricing, the previous pricing template. Why have you suddenly gone up? I think this is a question that journalists need to ask the NNPC GMD, because our people simply can't.
Okay, Dr. Yusuf is back.
Yes, there was something that you referred to, sir.
Are you with me?
Yes, there was something you referred to earlier that the same NNPC alluded to the fact that it had supplies for 30 days, which means the supplies that it had must have been based on the old pricing template. So why can't they sell at the old price and give the people some breather before implementing a new price regime?
Yes, I don't quite get that question. But the point I was making is that everything should not be about pure business or about profit and loss. Economics is a social science. There's a science component of economy which is about the principles of economics. There's the social component of economy which is about human beings. There has to be a balance between the two. If you see that your citizens are crying about high energy costs, the economy, SMEs, people are striking, how can you say because there is market forces in the midst of all that anger and pain? and you come and announce another review. I can understand if it's coming from a private sector people or something. I can understand. But not an NPC. Because the government needs to give some signaling. And the government is also sensitive to what is going on. So that is why once these things are getting to a particular threshold, government should step in and modulate it. If we need to use part of the savings that we are getting from all these reforms, rather than dumping everything for people to share in Abuja, let us use part of those savings to modulate the prices. So that we don't suffocate the citizens. The same thing with the foreign exchange. I know that you have had some discussion around that. Once the exchange rate is getting to a particular threshold, the CBN should have a mandate to intervene to ensure that it doesn't go beyond this threshold. Of course, depending on the amount of reserves that is available. So intervention is very, very key. And we have been talking about palliatives. It is not everything that is about the government distributing money or distributing something. There's a policy dimension to palliatives. Right now, import duty on buses is about 30 or 35%. What is wrong if the president gives a straight order, go and reduce import duty on buses by 50%? Do you know the impact that will make? And we are talking about CNG. What is wrong in the president coming up with a policy instructing the customs that anything that has to do with CNG, either the machinery or the kit, remove all the import duty, remove all the taxes, remove the VAT, so that the private sector can go in there. You don't have to be waiting for government. But if you give the right kind of policy incentives, things will begin to happen even before the intervention of government. That is the way things should go. If you need to subsidize the CNG kit, machines, everything, if you need to subsidize it, let us do so. So that rather than asking people to come and pay 400,000 to convert their vehicles, convert generators, they can be paid about 100,000. Because in the long run, it is better for everybody. So this money they are making, it is not everything you go and drop in federation accounts. Because the value to the citizen may not be as much as if we are retaining some of those monies with the citizens themselves. When you look at the welfare function. So we need to have a rethink of the way we go about these things. Yeah, the social aspect of policy is extremely important.
I get your point.
Weigh in on that.
I get your point, Doctor. I want to take you back to the tail end of my question that you clearly didn't hear. Now, you said that NNPC admitted to the fact that it had supply for 30 days, which means that the supply that it had was based on the old pricing template. And the old pricing template is at just 500 and something, like 510 naira per liter or something around that. Now, shouldn't they have allowed Nigerians to continue to buy petrol at the old price regime to give them some form of breather before introducing these new ones? Or is it impracticable for them to do that because of the fact that some people have been licensed to bring in product, just like NNPC?
No, certainly not. This is why I was saying that it is wrong, especially at this transitional phase, for the NNPC to be behaving purely like a business entity that is chasing profit. The president should not allow that to happen, because we have a responsibility to the citizens. The NNPC was thinking like a businessman, like a capitalist. He was thinking about replacement cost. That if he sells it at the former price, when it comes to replace it, they will replace at a much higher higher cost. But that kind of logic cannot apply in this kind of situation. Because it could present the nation as being insensitive. Because at least for now, it is still a public corporation. That may not necessarily crowd out the entire market. But at least it gives a very good signal that, okay, this is the case. NNPC continues at least to, in line with the social objective of government, continue to sell at this price. We cannot compare that to the kind of subsidy burden we were carrying when we were selling at 195. That level of control is still manageable, still tolerable. If I were the president, I would not allow that to happen. I would not allow it. And allow at least things to at least stabilize a bit. Let me even deliver the palliatives. Let the people see what it is before you begin to increase price again. So there has to be boundaries. And I cited the example of the US. Once energy prices get into a particular level,
yes,
the government itself comes into it. They release reserves, they waive taxes, they do all sorts of things. Because the economy is very sensitive, the people are very sensitive to energy prices. The same thing with food, the same thing with transportation. That's why I was talking about all this tariff on buses and all of these things. What does it take the president to direct the customs? I said your tariff on buses, 18-seater and above, I'm cutting it by 50%. The private sector people, the companies, the transporters, governments, local governments, state governments, they can buy it easily and flood the system with these buses. That will help the supply side of transportation. The same thing with the CNG. Throw subsidy into it. If you go abroad, amount of subsidy that they use to support renewable energy is a lot. Government subsidy. Just to ensure that people migrate from fossil fuel to renewables. The same thing should happen here. We should not just leave everything to the market. It's not done. That's what we call market failure in economics.
Do you share the optimism that some investment bankers have expressed that the naira will eventually stabilize at between 550 to 600 to a dollar after some months?
Well, I share the optimism conditionally. Again, you need to be careful the way we just leave the market just on its own. Now you can see the pressure on the foreign exchange market. Some of this pressure you may not even be able to explain where it is coming from. So there has to be a framework to ensure that we even vet all this demand in the foreign exchange market. I know that we have a huge backlog of demand arising from the dysfunctional foreign exchange policy we have had in the past. I'm also aware that recently we paid $500 million to service outstanding maturing obligations on our Eurobond. That may have put some pressure on the central bank itself. But we cannot just open the window and allow anybody, everybody, any amount to be coming to the market and be buying the dollars. It's possible that there are some money laundering issues going on. It's possible that there's some problem of capital flight. We need to check these things. No economy just opens up everything like that. No. We need to check some of these outflows. And just as I said, we need to, ensure that the CBN from time to time also intervenes, because the capacity to intervene also has a way of moderating the market. And that again depends on the supply. One of your comments talk about supply. We're able to move fast with all this, our oil production, and also be able to restore confidence generally. Because this volatility is affecting confidence. So we should ensure that we have a framework to regulate what is going on there. And I was looking at some money market statistics. or monetary statistics. In the last 1 month, we saw a monetary expansion, both in money supply of 9.2 trillion over 1 month. Where is that coming from? You need to investigate these things, because if you have this kind of liquidity dropping into the system, it has a way of altering all these equations that we are talking about. Just between May and June, increase in money supply of over 9 trillion. It's unprecedented.
Yes, if
so
I may.
The monetary authorities also need to weigh in on some of these things. Let us investigate it. Where is it coming from? Because if you continue with that kind of injection of liquidity, you continue to create problems for the currency.
Yes, if I be coming here, the question I want to ask is, how do we stem this tide of incessant increases in fuel prices? What can we do as a nation to be able to make sure that we'll be able to stem this tide? Because as according to what the GMD said, of NMP said, market forces, does it mean that when we have market forces again next week, there'll be an increase? What can we as a nation do? We're a country that produces crude oil, but imports petroleum products, unlike so many other countries, and that in itself is an aberration. What do you think about that?
You see, there are multiple approaches. First, the supply side approach, which is what you mentioned when you were, contributing to the discussion. What are we doing to accelerate this domestic refining of petroleum products? What new incentives have you put in place to encourage more investors to come into the space? There has been nothing on the table yet. I think our biggest anticipation of hope is on the Dangote refinery, which we are told between August or September it will come on stream. But there has to be fiscal incentive, because I'm a strong believer in using incentives to drive the economy. Because when you put out the right kind of incentive, it's the private sector will take it over and they will deliver results for you. So that is one side. The second side of it is to define a threshold for political and social reasons, where we will not allow this fuel price to go beyond. And that will require the government stepping in. Forget about market forces. But when you are in a crisis, there are some ideological things that we have to set aside. I just told you about what Obama did when the auto industry in the US had a crisis.
Yes.
You set it aside and say, well, this thing is getting to a crisis point. You call the stakeholders, I don't want this thing to go beyond this point. What can we do? And luckily, we now have more money coming from this forex convergence. We have money coming from the fuel subsidy that we have moved from 195, now we are selling at over close to 600. You can see what happened at the last FAC meeting. Unprecedented amount of money that they have never seen in the history of FAC. Rather than drop everything into the FAC account, we should have some strategic reserves where you can use for this kind of intervention. You talk to the stakeholders. I don't want this to go beyond this point. You now have some fiscal space to intervene, and you ensure that it will not remain high forever. Oil price will not remain high forever.
Yes.
This import dependence will not remain there forever. By the time we scale up domestic production and all of that, by the time we accelerate with this CNG, some progress will be made. But in the meantime, when you are facing extraordinary situations, you take extraordinary steps. For the NFD to come and be telling the citizens that because of market forces, in the face of all these social problems, no, the president should not allow that. Please.
Oh, I think we have to leave it there. Anytime you talk to Dr. Muda Yusuf, it's always very illuminating. I want to thank you, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Executive Officer of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for the food for thought.
That's a good one.
I don't know. I think
everything he said is the truth. Everything he said. I like when Nigerians speak like this, it shows clearly that he wants the government to succeed. I remember those auto companies in the US and Detroit.
2008.
Yes. No?
Yes. Even the aviation.
They had to, even after 9/11.
Yes.
People did not want to fly. And it was going to crash the airline industry in the US. Yeah. And you know what that means? It's the US that Boeing has its home. That's why they build their planes. So the government was not going to allow that to happen. The government subsidized the aviation sector to save it from imminent collapse because people are not flying. So there are times, even at the peak of market forces and all that, that government has to come in.
And so
I've always described petrol as a security product. See, petrol is a time bomb. Our people take to the streets today, it is because of the power of petrol. This dress that you are wearing is a petroleum product.
Byproduct.
Yes. It's a product. The transportation impacted terribly by petrol. Power. Diesel. Power impacted by it. What's it called?
Connected to everything.
Food.
Everything.
Food.
Production.
Food security.
To bring food
tied to
everything.
Petrol. So that's a sector that has to be handled with utmost care. Because at the snap of
all encompassing,
people can take to the streets. People on the streets in Kenya already.
Yes, of course.
Because the president introduced some reforms. The people that don't want to kill us. Yeah. That's the way the ordinary man will look at it. The reforms are not bad in themselves, but in the way we've implemented them, we have to track back and do what is right.
We are taking so many at the same time.
Yeah, we have to track back.
So many.
As you said, I also agree that the palliatives should have even come before this sector.
Yeah, yes. Well thought out.
Yes.
Well thought out.
What are we going to do? Significant remark by him.
When you are announcing the removal, you are announcing the palliatives.
And by then people will complain because there is a road. There also have been a roadmap.
He announced it during inauguration. He couldn't have come up with palliatives because he had not even taken government. But people were shocked that almost immediately NNPC implemented.
Yes, but that is where the president also would have stepped in and said, the fact that I am now...
He has not even talked about
one more month. This is May 29th.
Yes,
and we had to June, end of June.
That is where the president would have come in and stepped in and said, no.
And that's why some people said, look, this thing, there was no consultation. Because if the consultation was sufficient, people will have said, no, this is a roadmap. Let's wait until so time when we will have put these palliatives on ground.
After all, the subsidy was to last in June. But immediately said it in May. And it was the same NNPC. It's the same NNPC. It's this same NNPC that is not driving.
If they are not
careful, the same NNPC.
They will put the government.
Yes, it's this same NNPC. Because that same day, it was NNPC that changed the prices and people, and at that
time, they were the only ones importing
them.
So they can't say other.
They changed. They were the same one that came a few days ago to say they have changed. And before you know it, every other, NNPC shouldn't be allowed to be the driving force because it seems that, yes, you know that the fact is that NNPC have been privatized. And that's a fact. Yes. But
Chris Kendi,
not an issue to be.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
And the Meshioye himself, Babajide Kolade Otaju. Thank you for your contribution. And that's our offering this Sunday. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of Journalist Hangout at 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30 p.m. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. See you tomorrow and God bless Nigeria.